Moms who know do less so they can focus on what matters most, taking care of themselves, their families, and living their God-given purpose. Moms who know focus on the little things they can do that grow to have a huge impact. You are connecting with your family, your true self, and your God-given purpose. You are a mom who knows. Hello and welcome to the Moms Who Know podcast. I'm your host, Chanel Nielsen, and I'm joined today by my husband, James, for this episode of Couples Who Know. And I want to start off with a disclaimer. We are recording with most of our kids at home, and they're running around, and you might hear lots of noises in the background, but we're just going to go with it.
Because we are. Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one. It'll be fun.
It'll be good, and we're going to hope for the best. The door's locked, so nothing could go wrong, right? So anyway, today we are going to talk about service in marriage and the importance of serving each other and what that has done for our marriage and what it can do for yours. So James is going to start us off.
Perfect. Thanks. I am really excited about this one, talking about serving today and the word serve. When you're serving, you're happy. I don't know if you've just had this experience where you are just in the middle of doing this maybe hard thing, working, either serving someone else or doing a service for someone in your family, and you just feel awesome. And so that's why I'm excited about this, because I like the way I feel when I serve. So this acronym, I'll spell it out for you. Serve. So S for selflessness, E for embrace, R for realize, V for value, and E, express. So we'll talk about each one of those things, SERVE, and spell it out for you and give you some thoughts that hopefully will be really beneficial to you. So Chanel will take it away.
Yeah. Okay. Before I dive into S, I want to just share a quick experience that came to mind. I grew up in Southern California, and I remember in the early 90s, of course, we always have our wildfire seasons here in Southern California, but I remember one that was particularly bad in Laguna Beach. And we went out and we were filling sandbags, and it was hard, miserable work to fill all these sandbags because there were these homes up in Laguna that, they were in danger of basically falling off the cliff. And so they needed a lot of sandbags. And I just remember the hard, back-breaking labor of filling these sandbags, and yet the joy that came from that service, even though it was so hard. And when James was talking about what service is and why it's so important, that came to mind, because even though it can be really hard, it does bring so much joy. And that is especially true in our marriage relationship. So the S in serve stands for selflessness. Now, what is selflessness? Selflessness means being concerned more with the needs of, in this case, your spouse than you are with your own. And that's a really interesting thing to think about, because we talk a lot on the podcast about self-care, and that's something that I feel like is so important for moms, for women in general, that we need this element of self-care. And yet here is this opportunity or this thought that we need to be selfless, that we need to put our spouse's needs before our own. And I feel like it's almost this quandary of, well, do I need to be selfish or do I need to be selfless? So what I really want to cover in this one is kind of how those two ideas can work together. And I want to share, this is a video that I saw. Some of you may have seen it. It's called, I'll link to it in the show notes, but it's called something about the good you can do. It's about not realizing the good you can do. And it starts out with a woman who, she wakes up and she hears her kids in the other room. And the first thing she does is she checks her phone, and she has a text from her cousin. They're planning on getting together that night, and she's so excited to see her cousin. And she looks at her to-do list, and she has about 10 things she wants to get done that day. But as she goes throughout her day, everyone needs her. Her kids need her. Her son didn't finish his science fair project, and they're quickly putting that together. She's helping him, and her friend needs her, and she needs her to babysit her kid. And so she drops the thing on her list that she was going to do and she watches her friend's kid instead. She goes on, she tries to do something else on her list, but her sister needs her. So she drops her own thing and takes care of her sister. Later, as she's getting ready to go out to go meet her cousin, she realizes that she said she would make dinner for a family who just had a baby. And so she stops what she's doing. She doesn't go out with her cousin right away and she makes dinner and she has all kinds of things go wrong. Anyway, all throughout the day, she puts aside her own needs. And at the end of the day, she finally goes to meet her cousin and it doesn't work out. She doesn't get this time that she had wanted with her cousin, and she's so disappointed. And she's in tears, and they say prayers that night. And her son says, "Thank you for, the things we were able to do and the ways we were able to help and serve other people." Now, that's a beautiful thing. She was able to help and serve other people. But she put herself and her own needs so far down that they didn't even make the list. And she was sad and she was disappointed and she had a really rough day. Now, sometimes that's exactly what we need to do. Sometimes we do need to put other people's needs above our own. When there is a crisis or our spouse is really going through something hard, sometimes we really do need to put his needs above our own. But at other times, we need to make sure our own needs are being met. And I really liked Jennifer Finlayson Fife. We went to an event with her recently, and she said it's not about being selfish versus being selfless. It's the idea that everyone in a family or in a marriage relationship takes turns doing things for each other. So at some times you are going to put your needs aside to serve your spouse. But at other times, that same thing needs to happen for you, that your needs are being met. And maybe not even by your spouse. If your marriage, isn't working out like that your spouse is taking care of your needs, you still need to make sure you're taking care of your own needs. So with selflessness, the S for serve is selflessness. We absolutely need to at times put our spouse's needs above our own. And at other times, we need to make sure our own needs are being met.
Wow, I think you did a really beautiful job of explaining that. And I agree wholeheartedly. I think that's so important that we understand that timing of when we can serve and when we can put others first and when we need to take care of ourselves. So nice job. I want to talk about E for embrace. So on this one, I just want to give you the definition of embrace, which is accepting or supporting willingly and enthusiastically. I think there's so much value in supporting with a happy heart, right? That's what serve is, serving. You can have so many different things going through your head. I like that example Chanel shared earlier with doing the sandbagging and there are things that we can do with a happy heart, or we can do it grudgingly. And really, when you do it grudgingly, it takes away from the act of service altogether. And that's important, having your heart in the right place and embracing the actual idea of, okay, I'm going to accept or support willingly and enthusiastically, please.
Yeah. So I just want to add on that. When you are the person being served, when your spouse is doing something for you, when they do it willingly and enthusiastically, like, "Hey, hon, let me help you out and pick up dinner tonight," or "Let me, bring you, I wanted to bring you flowers because I loved you." That's such a different feeling than, all right, fine, I'll make dinner, that kind of attitude. And so I think with this embrace, that idea of willingness and enthusiastically doing it just adds to the service. And the person receiving the service is able to feel that more. It feels more like an act of love than an act of duty.
Oh, no question. Absolutely. Good thought. I want to talk about this idea of embrace during different seasons of your life. Because looking back through our marriage, there are so many different seasons that we're in. Maybe a new baby phase. And oh, that's really hard. We all know how that can affect um, our attitudes and just how tired we are and the things that need to be done around the house. So helping out willingly and enthusiastically is a big one there. I think there's danger sometimes in wanting to get away from that season or be done with that season in your life and not embracing it and wanting to just move on, because there are a lot of things that are really hard in life. And there's different times and seasons that you're going to be in that really require a lot of work. So to just embrace it and do it, and have a happy attitude about it. The other thing I wanted to talk about with embrace was embracing differences in your spouse. So as we all know, there are many differences in the ways that we were brought up. So our upbringings look really differently. And I think that if we can take the opportunity to embrace the differences and how we were brought up and the things that we contribute from our childhood to our marriage, the positive, good things, can really help bring you and your spouse closer together. And not just, oh, like your family, this and that is just a lame thing and I don't want to do it. Maybe look inside yourself and think, this was something that was of value to my spouse and that they did growing up. And that's something that's a part of them. So embrace that, accept that. And I think that's pretty powerful. And then the last thing is embracing differences just between your sexes, right? We're male and female, and we have these great differences. And if if your spouse is well, I want to be delicate in how I say that. If because there's different things that that you do as male or female. So don't just roll your eyes. If your spouse needs to cry it out, maybe that could be a stereotypical thing, right? If girls are more prone to crying, guys cry too. Just want to throw that in there. But just to let them do that and to embrace that difference. There are, sometimes tender moments where you need to be a little bit more gentle with your spouse. So just you can think of various different things that are different, just from the sexes, and try to embrace those.
Yeah, okay. I love that. Just that whole concept of, accepting and supporting, which is really what embrace means, right? There are so many different applications and ways that we can do that in the way that we interact as couples
For
that
sure.
lead to service. So the R in serve is realize. And this really means realize the way that your spouse wants to be served. And we can sometimes miss the mark and do things to try to serve and to try to do things for our spouse, and in ways that maybe they're not going to appreciate as much. And let me kind of explain what this means. So I'm going to share an experience I had with a missionary companion of mine. She was a really nice, friendly girl, and she wanted to do service. She wanted to do something for me. What she would do is when we would be walking together, if we would get to a door, she would run up to the door, push me out of the way, and go and open the door for me. And I did not like that. I felt like she was pushing me out of the way, and I didn't appreciate that very much at all. And another thing she would do to serve me is we would eat in the cafeteria. And when we would get up to where the trays were stored, like the cafeteria trays to put our food on, she would get one for herself. She'd get one for me. And then she'd get about 20 more and pass them down the line to everyone in line so that they would have their tray, so they wouldn't have to get their tray. And in her mind, like she was doing a service. But in my mind, I was thinking, now those people have to hold their trays, for 5-10 minutes until they get to the front of the line. And maybe that's not such a service at all. I bring this up because when we serve people, we want to make sure it's in a way that they appreciate, that it's something that they actually want done and that they're going to be grateful for. Now, of course, we should be grateful when our spouse tries to do anything for us, right? But another example of this is early in our marriage. I asked James not to give me flowers. We were tight on money. And to me, I like flowers, okay, but I would rather have had the money in the bank account than to have flowers. And I let him know that, and he didn't bring me flowers. And I appreciated that so much more because I was worried about money, and I appreciated having the money in the account and not having to worry about flowers. And yet, you have to really know your spouse. You have to realize what they want, because some women, maybe even most women, would rather have the flowers than the money, and there might be feeling like, oh, why doesn't my husband ever bring me flowers? And so you have to know what it is that your spouse wants and serve them in that way.
Perfect. I like that story about the flowers because I remember that being hard for me. Like, well, wait, isn't this how you show love? Um, but this goes right into the next one. V for value, valuing your spouse for who they are, just loving them for who they are, and showing appreciation for them for who they are. I'm glad that you brought that story up about the flowers because I feel like I really gained a different type of respect. Like, wow, she wasn't mad about it. Like, don't ever bring me flowers. We don't have the money for that. It was just she explained it. And so I realized what was important. Like we want to build our financial foundation, and so that just really helped me value Chanel, and I really like that.
And
So,
something cute that comes to mind that James did during those early years is sometimes, like for Valentine's Day or a birthday or whatever, he would give me money bouquets and he'd fold them into little roses. Do you remember doing
oh
that?
yeah.
And make it look like a flower bouquet, but it was made of money, and I liked it ever so much better than flowers.
Oh, that's great. Okay, good. On with value. Um, this is an important one. Putting yourself in your spouse's place is really a good way how to learn how to appreciate them. And I like this because Chanel helped me to see the value in this. When we were very young and married with young kids, she'd just give me the opportunity of, okay, this is your turn to, not your turn, just like you learn how to do this. This is what we're going to do. And I need a break from these kids. And so she would give me the opportunity of doing those things and some things that were hard. There's lots that I could probably talk about, but I'll just stick with that with the kids, and that helped me to grow closer to the kids and be with them and love them and appreciate my wife for what she did. That's hard to be home all day with the kids and just giving her a break, and I loved that. Another one, sometimes. Taking on their jobs and doing something they would typically do. So that is what the kids, we talked about that. But then looking for those opportunities. How can I show my spouse that I value them? Just keeping that in mind and provide a service for them. So I noticed that Chanel will typically, she's awesome about this. She'll typically fold all the laundry, and I'll just magically, it appears, right? I have clean clothes and they're folded and nice to go. And so sometimes I'll really try to make a point of, hey, I can fold these clothes. I can put them away too. Look at me, right? No, but just those things that your spouse might typically do. And I know Chanel's done that for me in the past. I always make a point to take out the trash. She's done that before, and just, wow, they are valuing me because they did that little service for me, and know that it's something that I typically do, but they can do it too. And it just shows your spouse that you care about them. One other thing that comes to mind is growing together while you serve together. We had grandparents, adopted grandparents, right? That's what was that the
Yeah,
program? That's what it was called. So we had Grandma and Grandpa Lloyd. We loved them so much, and we would visit them. Was it weekly?
it was weekly.
Oh, such a good opportunity. And we came to love them, and just serving them and spending time with them helped Chanel and I grow so much closer together. And I could see, her tenderness when she would talk with them and listen to them and their stories. I think we heard lots of the same stories, right? But it was so much fun to serve together. And like I said, that brought us so much closer together.
Yeah, I think that That is such a cool thing that we've been able to do. And I think, you don't have to do the adopt a grandparent program, of course, to serve together, because as parents together, you get that opportunity all the time. But when you look at it as we're in this together and we value serving our family together, or we're going to go out together and do community service, that just helps you to see your spouse in a whole different light. And it's a powerful thing. And it's really fun and really connects you in a different way. It helps you to grow closer, like James said, and then to really see certain things in your spouse and see the good in them. So the last one is E for express. Express your love by serving. And so we have just a brief list that we're going to go through of ideas of ways to express your love, ways to serve your spouse. So I have three. All right. So the first one is food. That's a great way to express your love. I remember at my bridal shower, I got a gift that said there are two ways to a man's heart, and then she had two gifts, and one was a cookbook, and then the other was lingerie. So the first one that we're going to talk about is food. Anything from cooking your spouse their favorite meal to packing them a special lunch or a picnic, or making them some kind of a special event meal. That's something that the kids and I actually have done for James in the past, where we'll make a special menu and decorate the dining room and things like that, but making something special, a service around food. Another one is taking care of your spouse when they're sick. And that is such a tender and really, vulnerable time, and an opportunity that you really get as a spouse to attend to your spouse's needs, to serve them, to see what they need, to check in with them, and to just give a little extra time and attention and love. And next is the way that you talk about your spouse. So speak well about your spouse in front of others. And this can be when they're there, when you're in a group, talking about your spouse and building them up. It can also be when they're not there. And what that does for you and the way you think about your spouse, what that does even for your relationship, even if they're not there to hear it, I still believe it strengthens your relationship, because you are then focusing on the good and seeing the good.
Awesome. So, three more thoughts for you. Be quick to forgive. This is a wonderful thing to practice. And I think Chanel's so good at it. It doesn't do any good to hold a grudge. So that's one way to express your love through service, is being quick to forgive. And she's taught our kids how to do this too. They can get in a fight, and most of the time they can just move on very quickly because it's modeled. And I think when we model that as parents, our kids absolutely pick up on it quickly, and it's a great one. Another one, send a thoughtful or flirty text or write a note. I love getting those notes, especially when I'm traveling. It just makes me feel like my wife is thinking of me, and it's a way to really have some romance in your life. And I love the text. Chanel mentioned before, I don't know if it was in a previous podcast, but that we work both from home, and we can send text to each other even when we're under the same roof, but in different rooms. And it's fun. It's just a way to let them know that you are thinking about them. And then ask what you can do for them, maybe how you can simplify their day. And if you notice they're feeling stressed, ask what you can do to help them, to lighten their load.
Yeah. Okay. A couple more. So James mentioned this earlier. Do something that's normally the other person's job as a way to serve. Don't complain when your spouse has other responsibilities. This is one that I've gotten to work on over the years. If your spouse has responsibilities at church or in the community, allow them to do that service without being so, what's the word? So controlling is the only word I can think of, but that's not exactly it. But, just so demanding of their time, and to let them have that time, that is truly a way to serve them so that they can come home, feeling good about whatever they were out doing and not having to worry about, you being upset. And then the last one is physical touch, hug or massage, or, just really to snuggle and sit close is a way to serve your spouse.
Couple more for you. This is a big one. So letting your spouse sleep in, right? It can't be all the time, but it can be really great to sleep in. Sleeping in for us is like 7 a.m., right? So the kids get up early, but that's a big one. And then this is another one I want you to think about doing with your spouse. Ask them to teach you something that they're good at. I think that's a great way to show service to your spouse and love, and another way to grow closer together. Hey, can you teach me how to for Chanel, she's a speed reader, and so she's actually taught me in the past like some tricks on how to speed read, which has been pretty cool, and really good at yoga. So Chanel's taught me how to do some yoga and Tai Chi, and that's actually something that I really like to do now. By learning from her, I've really gotten into that. And then,
Oh, can I just
yeah,
interject
yeah,
one in that? And then some things like, so James has worked in, I don't know, the construction field, you would say, yeah,
sure.
for a long time. And so he knows a lot of things about like project management and things about like the streets and how they're built. And so it's really fun to sometimes when we're out driving, I'll say, why did they do that to that road? Or what is that project? And he knows all about it. And it's kind of just fun to ask for that explanation and let him be the expert. And I learned something in the process, but it's just cool to see that side of your spouse, to see something that they know really well that maybe you have no idea about, and to let them teach you.
Awesome. That makes me feel good. And then that concludes that the last thought here is encourage your spouse when they might be feeling doubtful. I can truly say that I feel like Chanel's my biggest cheerleader, and that's so huge to me because sometimes life can be a little discouraging, or you might have a bad day, and when you cheer your spouse on, that is serving them. And I just appreciate that so much when I'm feeling maybe a little down and my wife has encouraging words for me. It makes me feel like $1,000,000.
Awesome. Well, we hope that we've given you some ideas today on both why serving your spouse is so important, and then on how to go out there and do it. The truth is, there are a million different ways to serve your spouse. And the most important thing is to look for those opportunities and to communicate with your spouse and to figure out what it is that matters to them so that you can make a point of doing it. And I know from personal experience, when you do that, you're going to feel better in your marriage. You're going to feel better about your spouse, and you guys are going to grow closer. And so, as a reminder, this acronym, so serve, selflessness, embrace, realize, value, and express. So, we hope that this has been helpful, and we would love to know what one little thing you are going to do differently or think about differently because what you've heard today. Let us know on Facebook or Instagram at Moms Who Know Podcast. And if you like this episode, share it with a friend. We love it when you share. That's so helpful to help the podcast grow and to really help other people's marriages grow. So thank you for being here, and thank you everyone for listening to Moms Who Know.